Welcome to Overtime on Inferno, your weekly roundup of all the big stories in CSGO in less time than it takes for the CIS era to be over. I'm Logan, I'm here with Aizyesque. Let's get into it. Valve did a thing this week, which I guess we're setting a really low bar here for like Valve doing a thing to be like the lead story for the week. But like Valve did a big thing. So they removed Train from active duty and put Ancient into active duty. So what was your like gut reaction to this? Were you asleep when you heard? Like, were you still up when you heard, or did you hear in the morning after?
So I was awake, and my immediate reaction was, "Why Train?" I actually quite liked Ancient when I played it. I think it's kind of fun. It's quite different. But like I found the one bomb site quite interesting. But I also find Train really interesting. Train was always one of my favorite maps to play, and I actually enjoy watching it. I know a lot of people have a problem with watching Train. If they rework the B bomb side to be a little bit less linear, then I think Train could be a really cool and interesting map. But I don't trust that they will, because Cobblestone could have been interesting if they reworked the B site and they reworked the A site instead. So I don't know. I don't think Train should have been the one removed, but I do quite like Ancient, and I'm glad they are adding new maps. So I guess that's my take on it. Is nice idea. For me, the wrong execution. I love Train, but I can see why they've done it.
Yeah, so I think stats came from Leadify or something like that. That was like Train was the least played map in matchmaking, and that in Face It was like the second least played map behind Vertigo or something like that. And then Pro Games, it was the least played map. Like it was basically the least played map across all statistics. And I'm not saying that that's a reason to get rid of a map, but like there is at least some sort of reasoning. It's not like they were just like, yeah, no, fuck it, I'm gonna remove whatever map I feel like it. Like you just go like, fuck it, I'm removing Overpass, just the most middle of the road map in terms of like plays. Um, so I feel like it at least makes some sort of sense in that aspect. I'm upset about Train being on too. I love Train. I always performed well on Train, like as a player. But you also don't ever get Train, at least in North America. It's like the issue with queuing really is a thing.
I find that really
I liked
odd, though.
Ancient.
I don't understand why Train is queued less than other maps. I really don't. It
It's
for
it's
me. It's
hard to
the
learn.
most fun map to play.
I agree, but it's really difficult to learn the first time.
I don't think it's that hard. Like I don't think
I don't think
it's.
it's that hard either. But anytime you have a map that has the same call out with just a color in front of it, like red train, green train, blue train, right? Anytime you have that kind of stuff, it's kind of difficult to learn the call out. Like a lot of people don't know what Ivy is or back six, right? Like that's
Yeah,
not
but
an easy to figure out
you could
call
just
that.
figure out. Oh, that's Ivy. Oh, that's Pop Dog Ladder, whatever you call it. Up
Yeah,
down.
but
You heard it called sometimes in EU. You know, that's no. That to me, that's no harder than learning like call outs on Mirage. Oh, that's bench. Oh, that's triple. I mean, people still get call outs wrong on Mirage. People still call like triple box default, and then the default box triple. And it's like, no, it's the one with three boxes is triple. And then people call ninja, like they call firebox ninja, and they call triple
and
firebox. It's called
no,
firebox because you molly it all the time. Like I
literally
think. Anyway,
constantly.
that's how you remember it. Nothing else.
Yeah,
A ninja is the bit behind firebox in that little
Bucks.
corner that you can hide. People still get
Which
that wrong. So
yeah,
people get
I
callouts wrong on every map. I don't think Train's unique in that sense.
I think the other thing was Train. Train was one of those maps that just like it's been around forever. It hasn't actually really been around that long, but like the old version, between the old version and the new version, it's been around for a long time. And I think it's kind of nice to see a completely new map as opposed to like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I,
I think that's cool.
I'm kind of aboard. It's been like a day or so, right? Thinking about this, right? And I'm kind of aboard the plus ancient train, right? Like not train, like aboard the people that
I got you.
enjoyed ancient. Yeah, okay. Instead of like other maps, because I know like day of, right? Like it was like 4 p.m. when I heard here, so I was up for like another, I don't know, 10 hours or something like that past that. So I got to see everyone's reactions as they were going. And then I got to see EU reactions as people woke up the next morning. So for me, it was like a lot of people were upset that they didn't add Anubis or that they didn't add Cashback or like other maps. And I was like, I don't see an issue with this.
I
And
would have liked to have seen like a triple map swap, like immediately after the major finishes, like put in Cash, put in Tuscan if it's done, and
yeah,
then put in Ancient and take out like like do a proper like wholesale change. That would be really fun. But like I say, immediately after the major when there's a player break or something, like give people time to learn these maps, but do like a big change like that. That'd be fun. I don't know.
I
I
mean,
think that'd be interesting.
I can't say that that still won't happen. Like
No, true.
Tuscan's still under development, so like that's the reason Tuscan wasn't added. Cash, I don't know. The new Cash plays exactly like the old Cash, and I don't know. It's just like you're putting something new in that's not really new again. Like it
I
plays
love the old
exactly
cash
this.
though. That's not a problem
I
to
love
me.
the old Cash, but we had it in the map pool for a really long time, and nothing's changed on it. Right? Like they've added the new box on the A
You
site. They
you
added the
mean like
window in
when they
mid.
re-added Dust 2 and it's exactly the same?
Yeah, I'm not a Dust 2 fan, so I cannot
Well,
speak for
exactly. But
Dust 2.
there's precedent for this. That they took Dust 2 out, added it back, and it was exactly the same.
Yeah, and people are like, "Nah, Anubis is a terrible map. It's going to take them really long to get into stuff." Yeah, remember Vertigo when it first came in? Like, go think about original Vertigo versus Vertigo now. It's a totally different thing, right? Like, there's
Yep.
it's so different at this point, and Valve's just going to do that. And I think that the whole reason why they just did it now. I was listening to HLTV Confirmed yesterday, and I heard Sponge say this, and I was like, "That makes sense." It's like the play rate was 0.5% of all maps played was ancient. So they've got like zero data on anything to do with the map. And basically, they're going to have to force feed it to us to get data to make the map better. Like, you could have put Anubis in and it would have had the same fucking problems. You could have put
Yep.
like whatever map you wanted in, right? You have zero playtime on it, roughly. You need data to make it better. It's not going to just become better overnight, right? It's not going to be a perfect map in one day, right? Like Overpass, when it first came out, was an absolute clusterfuck. Right? And they took what, like a year to fully redo that map until it's what it is today. I mean, you go back and play the original Overpass. I did a couple weeks ago, and it was absolute clusterfuck. There's things everywhere where there shouldn't be, right?
And Overpass is now definitively. I don't think there's any argument that Overpass is the best map in Counter Strike.
I love Overpass.
I don't
I
think there's
love
any
Overpass
like
so much.
the only person I've seen who disagrees with this is Freya. I don't know if you saw her map tier list on
I
Twitter,
did
but
see her map tier list. I
it was
hated it.
actually offensive to my eyes.
I hated it.
Um, I don't think there could be any argument that Overpass is like not the best map in the game because it allows for loads of different play styles. Pretty much every good team plays it and
Mhm.
plays it well, but there's never like it's never solved. When Astralis used to play Inferno, it felt like the map was solved. Like it didn't feel like you could do anything about it. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe people have found out how to do things better against it now, and it's not solved as such. But it felt like it was pretty cut and dry. This is how you play Inferno. I don't think there is a way that you play Overpass. I think it is really dependent on your style as a team and your style of players,
Yeah.
which I think is the mark of a great map. I always thought Cash was a really good map because as a CT, to be a good CT side on Cash, you had to be really proactive, which okay, it does force you into a certain style of play that maybe suits different styles of player than maybe there are some styles that don't really work. But I quite liked that it was pretty much the only map where the Ts were favored unless the CTs were aggressive, and I quite liked that. But
Yeah.
I mean, you can argue maybe Dust 2 is similar, but it's really hard to be aggressive as a CT on Dust 2. That's one of the
I
reasons I
mean,
don't like it.
yeah. I don't know. I was gonna say the same thing is currently applying to Ancient, and then I got my sides flipped. So I'm just wrong. I mean, I assume
I
that
haven't played enough of Ancient to make a
the
judgment
timings
on
are
that.
super CT sided right now. Like
Okay.
really CT sided right now. It's going to change. It's going to become much more T sided, but it's not going to. I don't think it'll be the same level that Cash was towards the like. You need to be proactive as a CT.
Hmm.
Um, More stuff on Ancient. It's not going to get used in the RMRs that are coming up. So Flashpoint and CS Summit, I believe, are safe. But it will get used pre-major, so that this will be at the major in November. I think they said IEM summer. is the next date.
Okay.
I'm not sure if they actually said that officially or if that's just when the guesstimates are because it's the next event that's not really in an RMR kind of thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fact that they didn't remove Dust or Mirage and like that.
I don't mind Mirage. I know everyone hates Mirage, but it's Mirage. There's no fundamental flaw with Mirage that isn't people are bored of it. I don't think. Whereas
I,
Dust
I
2 to me is fundamentally flawed as a map.
I think Dust 2 is a really good map on the sole thing of it's aim duels every single corner, which means that it is a pug map. It's a map that you and your friends can like load into and have absolutely zero team chemistry on, absolutely zero strats, and know absolutely nothing, and you can still have a fun time, right? Like if you logged into Nuke, it would be terrible, right? Like Nuke is such a technical map, and like it would be absolutely terrible to just run a 5 stack on there, right? there's there are maps that are for that. Like Cash was one of the maps that are for like just logging in with 5 people and just fucking go. Um, and I feel like Dust 2 is one of those. I feel like Mirage has somewhat become one of those, but less so than Dust 2.
My biggest problem with Dust 2 is that both sites are completely unretakeable. That's also my main problem with Inferno, is that you just don't like
You
you
can't
don't
play
you
retakes.
really shouldn't win. Like obviously most situations you shouldn't win like 3v3 retakes anyway. But on Mirage A site, it's you can win those retakes. B site
Yeah,
maybe not so much. Train A site you can win retakes. Even B site to some extent. I think B site's a lot harder to retake.
P-side is
Um,
really difficult to retake.
if they're pushed up. Even then,
It's a more difficult site to
train
retake,
is
but
easy.
like
Has to be easier to retake because the map's very CT sided, right? Overpass A, you see retakes semi regularly. But B site, I mean, you do
eh,
see it, but it's pretty difficult.
yeah.
And how many times does somebody take a site on Inferno or Dust 2 and it's just like 4 players saving along?
Inferno
It's like,
Inferno A site is
fuck
literally the
this.
most possible site to take. It's impossible to take that site.
Both sites on Inferno are so difficult to retake. Like, you can stop an Inferno A retake with one smoke. You smoke long and there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, there's literally
You just
nothing you
you
can
just
do.
can't
Like,
retake. It's impossible. And then
yeah,
it's the same with the B site. You smoke CT. What are you going to do? 5 people through banana and or 4 people through banana and construction. You can't retake. It's always been one of my biggest problems with Inferno is that it's just so difficult to retake, and that to me
though
is
I do
really
have to say,
uninteresting.
on its own, it's also really difficult to take for the same reasons
Yeah,
that it's difficult to retake. So it balances out. Like,
it balances out, but I think it's a lot less interesting to watch as a viewer and pretty uninteresting to play for me. It's like, oh yeah, my B player's died. I don't get to play this round.
I, I'm a pit player, so it's really
Yeah,
I
same. I
just
am as well.
like it's just like you sit in pit, wait, wait, wait. Okay, half my team's down on A side. I guess I should probably rotate now.
I've
But
played everywhere
hold,
on Inferno, but yeah, it's just like the other players on the players on the other side died. Well, I don't get to play this round. That's unfortunate. I
yeah,
mean, again, that does exist on other maps as well, but it's less prominent because you can at least attempt retakes on Mirage. You can attempt to retake on Overpass. You can attempt it.
yeah,
Inferno is just like just save. There's no point going for this 99% of the time. I don't know.
yeah.
I I wait to see on Ancient because I actually have quite high hopes for this map. It's quite interesting, and I like the fact that they are changing things up. I just would have preferred minus Dust 2 because I think the map sucks. I think it's really
I
awful.
I think regardless of what it is, it's gonna be permabans for a little while. And I think that itself, just the fact that it's not train, is going to be really interesting for everyone else because either teams will be forced to learn new maps that they didn't learn before because they'll be permabanning it, or they'll be forced to learn ancient, or they'll be forced to play maps that they just don't know how to play. Like Fury had played train, right? They're going to either have to learn ancient, or they're going to have to learn some other map, or they're going to be forced to play a map that they don't know how to play. And that
Yeah,
in itself is just interesting to start with.
yeah.
Like
I
the
think
one
that's
team that
good.
the
It stops team doing that.
the team that gets super helped by this is Liquid because they just didn't play train anyway. So
Yep,
you just switch your permaban. It's like golden. You're fine. Everything's fine.
and they can just permaban Ancient for a while until everyone figures out how to play the map, and then just copy whoever's good at it.
Yeah, I mean that's how Vertigo worked for a little while.
Yep, yeah, exactly. That's what how if you aren't forced to play the map because you've got
Mhm.
another permaban, you can just wait until the meta's figured out, so you're not learning bad things or learning bad habits.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you can just beat everyone on the other maps.
All right, so there's a bunch of other stuff that came with this update. So Wingman note is there was two new maps, which they are awesome if you're into Wingman. One's based after the Monaco Formula One track, like when Formula One comes to Monaco. It was as a F1 fan, it was really cool to walk around and like they have got an old Ferrari with obviously bullshit sponsors on it, and you see bullshit sponsors everywhere of like the actual. It's an interesting map to go on. It's kind of fun. I don't remember the other map a huge amount, but I believe it's like Colombia or something. It's weird. And matchmaking got two new maps, one of which looks exactly like Rust from Modern Warfare 2 from Call of
Oh,
Duty.
interesting.
It's
Can you
not
do
Rust at
like
all.
1v1 quick scopes, no scopes, throwing knives only?
It doesn't play like Rust at all, but it has
I
the same kind of thing. I
would
know
have
it's
loved
unfortunate.
that nostalgia rush. Like if you just did Wingman on like Modern Warfare 2 Rust, that would be so insane for like nostalgia.
I mean, yeah, but no, that's a regular map. The Rust one's a regular. It's a 5v5 kind of thing.
Disappointing.
Chicken's got visual update, which sure. I but there's an unplayable thing with the chickens, which is when you kill the chickens, it still has the same feathers that they used to have, um, which makes
Well,
the game literally
there's an easy
unplayable.
fix for that. Don't kill chickens.
I mean, I don't kill them. I saw it on Reddit, man.
Yeah.
I,
Oh yeah, I bet.
you press the E on the chickens. You get a
Disgusting.
gang of chickens following you when you're retaking a site on Inferno.
I just let them live. I'm, a bit laissez-faire. I just do as I do, let them do as they do.
Um, super dumb decision by Valve, in my opinion, but like you may vary on this, which is their $1 a month Broken Fang stats page thing. Um, if you don't know about this, basically, during Broken Fang, you were able to get a bunch of statistics after every game and some win chance and that kind of stuff just on your screen. And after the game, you'd like see your headshot percentage, your ADR over the past 20 games or whatever, right? And they're bringing that back. It was free for people that bought Broken Fang, so I guess it was $15 over the operation, but they're bringing it back for $1 a month now. And if it's weird because sites like Leadify exist that are free and will
Yeah,
do this for you.
yeah, exactly.
To,
That's the problem. Is that why would you pay for it when you can get it elsewhere? I mean, other games, this stuff is just free. Like, I don't
yeah,
know. I understand that they want to charge for it because people want it, and like you have to work hard on implementing it, so you want to get some payment for it. So I do understand, but I don't understand why anyone would pay for it. But I'm sure people will. So all the more power to them, I guess.
I thought about paying for it for a minute, and I was like, you know what? I'm paying like $3 a month for Leadify. It's not worth paying the $1 compared to the $3. Like it's so much more with Leadify. But I'm
I'm
also
not
in like
playing
the
enough at the moment to justify it. So
yeah, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who just don't know about Leadify or just don't know that these other things exist. So
it is a
um,
very small amount of money. In fairness, like $1 a
oh
month
yeah,
is
no,
not a whole lot.
I don't have an issue with the amount that they're charging for it. I just have a kind of issue that they are charging for it. Though apparently, I don't play Dota, but apparently it goes by the same thing that they have with their Dota Plus, which is the same kind of thing. You get like stats and stuff for $1 a month or something like that. That
Quite possibly. I've never played
I
Dota, so I don't know.
yeah, I don't play Dota. We also got a new case which has skins in it. That is the extent to which I'm willing to talk about the new case. Um,
Skins, some people care about them. I don't really. I'll be honest.
yep, that's the extent.
It's
All
just
right.
not my thing.
Hey guys, it's Logan. Quick note from the editor's desk. As you know, we've been running a referral code for the last couple of months now. That helps us get followers and helps you guys get real life CSGO stickers. So just a reminder that down in the description below, if you're on YouTube, or in the show notes, if you're on Spotify, your Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you get your podcasts, you can click on that, refer 3 friends, and you'll get real life CSGO stickers sent to your door. All right, back into talking about Moses and Adren. All right, let's get into the buy round now, and we're going to talk about the rest of the stuff that happened this week that wasn't Valve making an update. So first, we have a little thing, and then we're going to talk about Dreamhack. So small thing that could turn out to be a larger thing, depending on how this plays out, is Team Liquid has removed Moses and added Adren back. So this is the iconic mouse sports plus minus plus minus plus minus on Chris J. This is like the fourth time Adren's been back because he was a player, then he played while he was benched for the major, then he was a coach, and then he was a coach again. I don't know how this is gonna work. I
I can't believe the coaches do anything because teams would just go back to an old one all the time. It's like if they did anything, like you would move on from the coach who wasn't you clearly thought wasn't good enough. They can't really do. Like, obviously, they must do something right. So why do teams just not shop around? Why do they just go for the one? Oh yeah, no, we know this guy. Let's just get it. So it's either that they don't think they do anything, or they're just lazy. Like I don't. It seems so weird. Like Adren's from what we can gather from the outside, which admittedly isn't a whole lot, seems to be a pretty decent coach. He was a knowledgeable guy. He knows CS. He's been the coach of this team before, and I guess they were pretty good when he was there. So I mean, his pedigree's pretty good. But like in that case, why did you get rid of him in the first place?
I don't so I'm not sure if you watched the announcement video, but it seemed to me like that when they got Moses, right, that a lot of it was based on the fact that like COVID had happened and they were like, okay, we need to make some sort of change. Something is wrong. And so they brought in Moses over Adren. They were like, okay, maybe the coaching change helps. And then Nitro got removed. Okay, maybe the Nitro change helps. And then Twist left. And okay, maybe this just kind of being like changes you made, and then they went back and they did like a little analytical look at it and like, okay, what of these changes actually worked? What can we fix now that we're in a kind of better place? Like COVID obviously still screwing up everything with North America and stuff, but like they've played some international tournaments and they, okay, what was working before that we've changed that we should probably look back at? And I guess adding Adren was that thing. I don't know.
I
It's
guess,
it to
man.
me. It's like everything that they were on about was like Adren has such a good mind for the game. He's so analytical and stuff. And it's like, well, isn't that what you brought Moses in for?
Yeah,
Like,
and so if he's got that good a mind for the game and he's so analytical, he can't have been the problem in the first place. I maybe they just realized that they did something wrong and they just going, well, we screwed up, our bad.
I,
But I don't know, man. It seems
I,
strange to me.
it's just kind of weird. All right, let's talk about DreamHack. So, the Danish era is back, I guess. um,
Yeah, so obviously the semi-finals and the final this and the quarterfinals as well are this weekend.
yes,
So we only so far have the teams that are out and the teams that are in the semi-finals as settled. But I think the big story for me was the VP and Spirit both bombed out pre-playoffs, which was expected about 4 months ago, but now is actually like oh, this is worrying. Spirit
yeah,
especially, I think Virtus Pro 7th to 8th, they did quite well. But they didn't look dominant like they were before. Whereas Spirit really struggled. I think they dropped a map to Fiend,
they
which is not a
did.
good sign. A good sign, and then they got 2-0'd to leave the tournament. It's a bit of a whimper, and that was with Dexter going like insane as well. Dexter played
Yeah,
incredibly well this tournament. He dropped like 40 against G2 in a map they lost.
I, it's weird. I don't know. They went to overtime in that first map against G2. Well, that only map against G2 is a best of one. But like, I don't know. It's they unfortunately they played against G2. They played against Fiend and won against Fiend, which is what they're supposed to do. But then they had to play against Virtus Pro, and it's just like only one can leave kind of thing. And Virtus Pro just played better. In which in like our TLDR CIS team power rankings, I'd say that Virtus Pro is a better team than Spirit. So I guess that played out how it should have. It's just I don't know. It's weird to see both of them in the lower bracket and you have to force one out. It's kind of just unfortunate. I kind of wanted to see if Spirit was in the other part of the lower bracket with Mouse Sports and FaZe and G2. If one of those was flipped, that we might see a Spirit Virtus Pro lower final, but because both of them got to the lower finals, you don't see both of them getting through the playoffs. I think it's just one of those unfortunate things that happens. But like,
This tournament was like absolutely stacked though. Like
yes, this was
to the point where
ridiculous.
there were elimination games that were like Mouse Sports versus FaZe to go out in last place.
Yeah,
Like that's just insane. I mean, Extra Salt went out in last place, or like, joint last, losing to Astralis and Vitality. Like that is pretty unfortunate.
If there's a way to go out, that's the way to go out.
Yeah, like it's almost like, well, we didn't really have any chance
Yeah,
in a sense. VP went out because they lost to G2 again. Like you
which
talk about, VP losing, going out early, and it's like, well, you can't like that happens. Sometimes you do just lose to G2. Complexity went out losing to Furia. I mean, probably a little bit worrying for Complexity because that's the sort of team that you would think Complexity would do well against. At least from my personal view, because I when I think of Complexity, I think of a team that is like stacked to the rafters with pure skill.
yeah, I
Like when
think
your
in
worst player, like mechanically, is Rush,
gosh,
you are an
oh yeah,
incredibly talented team.
oh
Because
yeah,
Rush
yeah,
gets slept on. He is a mechanical beast. And then you've got JKS, who is clearly the best player on the 100 Thieves roster. You only have to look at them now without him to see, you know, how much he
what?
carried that team. Blame F, who's just like, again, he dropped a 34 kill performance in map they lost as well.
Yeah, it's he's ridiculous.
Config, everyone knows how good Config can be.
Yeah,
And Poison, who's just like one of the best AWPers in the world from my point of view. Like that team is stacked. And you come up against Furia, who obviously a very talented team, but a team that you would think play into what should be Complexity strengths. They want to duel you, and Complexity should be fine with that. Like if you take Complexity, and scrap with them, you should lose like 9 times out of 10. But Complexity losing that game to me that's worrying because that's a team they should be able to play well against.
on the other hand, though, if there's another team that just takes as many aim duels as Complexity should, it's Furia.
Yes,
Because
but I don't know. I don't think Fury and man for man should be able to match Complexity.
I don't think they should either, but we don't think Art's aggression should work either. So
Well,
I'm
yeah, I
not.
know quite. But if there's everyone knows that Art is going to peek you. Like you have to know at this point. It's Art. He takes the
It's
opening
been like
duel in like 40% of rounds he plays.
it's
Did you know
ridiculous.
how absurd that is? And
It's so stupid.
you have to be ready for his aggression. And when you have a a lineup with this level of talent, you should be able to just wait for Art to push you, kill him, and win the round. That should be what you're able to do. I get it, KS Aratu, Yuri, they're really good. Junior, really good. But like this is a team with Blame F, Config, Poison, JKS. This is an obscenely talented roster. They should not be going out 9-12 after losing 2-0 to Furia. Like
Yeah,
that is a team complete. If they'd have lost to Vitality, if you lose to a structured team like an OG, even like
yeah.
fine, but a team like Furia should be the sort of team Complexity just beat into submission. But they just, I don't know. I worry about Complexity for that reason.
I don't know. They are very hit or miss every single tournament. They're either the best team in the tournament or just definitely not the best team in the tournament. Like they'll
Yeah,
never be the worst team, but it's just like they either go out like top four, top two, something like that, or they'll go out like second to last, something like that. It's weird.
they're like
Um,
OG were last year,
yeah.
but more talented
All right, let's
and
switch
less
gears
structured.
to the Danish portion of the bracket, which was just all of Group B because Australis and Heroic were here, and neither lost a map until the finals where they faced each other.
Yeah, Heroic absolutely clapped Astralis. Like it wasn't even
Yeah,
close. Like
no, it
it didn't
wasn't.
even look like they were in the same tournament.
Not at
Heroic
all.
made Astralis look like an absolute dog team. They
Heroic
smashed. Tesses was absolutely unstoppable.
Heroic made Astralis look like Astralis would have made Heroic look about a year ago.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Heroic on that. If they show that form in the playoffs, they are winning this tournament. There's like no doubt in my mind.
There's no,
Nobody will
yeah,
stop Heroic if they play like that. They say Tessus and Shush looked absolutely unbelievable. Like
yeah,
I've sort of seen Shush play once or twice. He was on Mad Lions, right? And he was always like fine.
yes.
But
Mm.
you watch like the 1v3 he wins on Nuke was like like it was unbelievable. Like to do that to Astralis, I mean, that probably shows you like how much Astralis is struggling in a sense that
Yeah.
they're allowing somebody to 1v3 them in a way that they just wouldn't previously. But shush, like, oh my god,
Oh
he
my,
he was
he's
unbelievable. And then you look at the scoreboard, and he wasn't even top. Like Tessus went like 30-14 or something on Inferno
yeah.
against Astralis in 22 rounds.
I've
He was
got
unbelievable.
I've got ratings for the match, right? Up the highest rated player on Astralis was 1.15, which was Magisk, and at below next highest was a 0.68 from Bubsky.
Yep.
The lowest on Heroic was Cadian with a 1.14. The highest was Tessus with 1.98, which
Over
I've
two
never
maps.
over two maps. I've never seen a rating that high over two
Oh, I've
maps.
seen ratings that high, but it's rare you see it in a series. You'll see like map
I over two maps. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
over
But
two maps. That's really high. Like he
and
was
it's
unstoppable.
as much as like as much as we're like, yeah, Astralis is a form shell of themselves, and they're just not as good as they used to. They're still Astralis, right?
And they
They're
still
still gonna
beat
play.
decent teams, right? They beat
Yeah, like they
complexity.
beat
Oh, okay, they beat
complexity.
complexity. Right?
They beat complexity, but they beat Extra Salt, who's obviously not a.
Yeah.
But neither of them are pushovers.
No, no, of course.
Neither of them are like. Neither of them are like Fiend or Pain or something like. Neither of them are a team that you should absolutely win against 100% of the time. Like if Astralis lost to Fiend like 2 out of 10 times, I'd be a little bit worried, right? Like with Extra Salt, it's like sure, I'd say 70% of the time you win against Extra Salt as Astralis, but like there's an actual chance that Extra Salt win that. And the same with Complexity, although it's a little bit closer. I'd say it's like 60-40, right? But Astralis is a still a team that is to be threatened, especially by really high level teams. And the fact that you do that poorly against them is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Now we will
that
see
was that was just
we
that
will
is
see
disgusting.
more. We're going to see more Astralis because regardless of what happened in the finals, lower bracket final winner plus both of the upper bracket finalists making into playoffs. So we'll see them play G2 on Friday. But even if they win that game, then they have to go play Gambit, which
Yeah,
is
which is tough. It's
yeah.
really tough.
Let's
Gambit
go talk
don't
about
lose very much.
let's go talk about the other side of the bracket. Gambit just, I mean, they lost maps, but they didn't lose maps difficult, like hard, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
They
they didn't get blown out.
no, they Gambit looked really good against VP. Not VP, Navi. Gambit looked like I was watching that match. Gambit looked super good in that.
It's always nice when you see them play, like you see a team play against an underdog and they win convincingly. Like that's always nice to see. Like if you see you're playing an underdog and you beat them convincingly, I'm like, all right, we're here to
That's
play.
good.
You like
Yeah,
struggle to a 16-14 opening win, and you're like, all right, that's worrying. You're gonna have to like 2-0. But if you smack somebody who's like you smack a fiend and then you win 2-1
16
in
to
your next two
5.
games, I'm like, you can wipe out teams who aren't as good as you, and then you can grind out the wins against teams who are as good as you. That's a good sign. If it's the other way around as well, that's fine. But when it's like, okay, you're grinding out wins against Fiend and you're grinding out wins against Na'Vi, what if like somebody else has a good day? You're going to struggle. But it's Gambit are just it's really tight between them and Heroic for the best team in the world for me. But there's a giant gap after those two. I
Yeah.
don't see any world where the final isn't Gambit versus Heroic.
The thing is like I don't even know who I'd put as a third after Gambit and Heroic.
No,
I feel like
I've no
there's
idea.
like there's like the S plus tier, right, which is like which is Gambit and Heroic, and then there's this just like there's not even an S tier. It's just like A tier of just like a bunch of it's like 7 or 8 teams in there, and I couldn't tell you who's better than who on any given
Yeah,
day.
no, I legitimately have no idea who the third best team in the world is.
I'd say Virtus Pro is probably towards the top of that second tier, but also not at all because they could be in the worst
Sometimes,
tier in the world.
yeah, like sometimes
Like
they are. I mean, I have no idea. OG look good at the moment, but again, they're a
we
team
didn't
that's
see them
always
in this
flattered to
tournament.
deceive. Yeah,
We also didn't see them in this tournament, which means we didn't see them against these like upper level players after they've like we've seen them like once or twice with Flame Z and Nico and stuff, and it's like we'll see them more in Flashpoint 3, but it's just we haven't seen enough of them for me to really say like yes they are a good team or no they are a bad team. You've got the honeymoon period every time. I mean, like you as a North fan know that the honeymoon period definitely exists. Like
yeah.
that's so
The third best team in the world might be Na'Vi. I think they would. If you told me money on the line, who's the third best team in the world, I'd probably begrudgingly say Na'Vi. But even that, I'm
Not.
not confident in it.
I'm
But
so not confident because like
it's
Vitality isn't playing
difficult to vote
well,
against
Big
Simple.
isn't playing well, Complexity isn't playing well, Astralis is on the brink of absolute like
Yeah, there's a lot of
exploding. Like
there's a lot of behind the scenes rumors about Astralis. None of it sounds particularly good. So I'd be a
none
little
of
bit
it.
worried about this team if you're a big fan. But look, I don't know who the third best team in the world is, but there's no doubt in my mind Heroic and Gambit are far and away the two best teams in the world. And as I say, I don't see a world where the final isn't Heroic versus Gambit again.
And I think it'll be a good final. I don't think that there is such a thing as a bad final. They play such different versions of Counter Strike that
Yep.
it's so interesting to see them clash. Plus, Heroic have Hunden back now, which, regardless of what you think of him being reinstated as a coach after the bug, he still is a really good coach,
Yep.
right? Like he was one of the better minds of Counter Strike when he played, and he's showed at least at the beginning that he was legitimately a very good coach. And they've been doing everything without him up until this point, like the
Yeah.
entire time, like winning. What was it? IEM, not IEM, ESL Pro League. Like winning ESL Pro League was without him and stuff. So it's interesting to see him being brought back in and how they're going to do with him being brought back in.
Yeah. I as I say, I'm not sure how much difference it'll actually make. I mean, they were already unbelievably good with and without him, so maybe it
Yeah.
takes them up the next gear. I mean, if that performance against Australis is anything to go by, then yeah, maybe they'll be the
Yeah.
undisputed best team in the world soon.
All right. Let's move into overtime now, which is where we go through listener mail. We've got two questions today.
Three, I think.
There's three. Okay. So the first I want to do is having seen the rise and regression of Danish Counter Strike in the past few years, how sustainable do you feel that the current level of CIS teams are? Will it be sustainable going forward? And which region do we see having the next like resurgence and rise in the future?
So I think the current level of CIS teams is, I guess, it's not entirely sustainable. They won't have four teams in the top 10 for that much longer, I don't think. But in terms of talent, Russia is all CIS region has always been really underrated. Like people,
Mm-hmm.
I watched the CIS minor all the time because I thought it was always like there was always some new player that you'd never heard of who was just clicking on heads. I mean, it was Mir and Chopper a while ago, and people just didn't believe that Mir and Chopper were actually any good for whatever reason. There was Norbert a few years ago, who now is on K23, so that hasn't gone entirely well. But I mean, Axile was it on? He was on the team like that, and he looked unbelievable. Like you have these players, and for whatever reason, the CIS region just constantly pumps out these unbelievably gifted players. I mean, Bit has come out of like almost nowhere. He was on Navi Junior and had the highest headshot percentage in the world. I think over his career, he's averaging a better headshot percentage than anyone I've ever seen.
That
He's
includes
at like
screen,
seventy
as far
percent
as I'm aware.
headshots. It's absolutely incredible. Like that is a level of mechanical talent that is incredibly rare. And if he can like piece those things together, he will be one of the best players in the world because you can't fuck with that level of talent. You can't be on his
Yeah,
screen. Like it's that simple. Um, so I do think the CIS region has been criminally underrated for a long time, and I think maybe this period has allowed the CIS region to show that they're not to be trifled with. For whatever reason, now it's come up. Um, I don't think it's sustainable. There'll be four of the 10 best teams in the world, but I think they'll keep four teams in the top 30, five teams, six teams in the top 30. Like
I think
there's
four
still
teams in the top
talent.
30 is easy.
Yeah, there's still talent underneath VP, underneath. I mean, Spirit have Patsy on the bench, who's pretty talented. Like this, they still have just this conveyor belt of obscene talent. I mean, there's still is it Munzi?
Yeah, on the Navi
Like he's
Junior
still like
lineup.
15 or something. He's still got time to get good, like to be a
And
legitimate super talent.
I mean, and Flamey's sitting on Navi's bench, like not doing as well on Navi as he previously was, but move him to
Yeah,
Spirit or something like that, and he
if he
might.
can refine his form, then I mean
Then
he's another
yeah,
talented player. I wouldn't
yeah,
put it past him having like an Adren Mo type re-rise to the top. You know, like Adren was just like discarded for a while, and then he just won a major on Gambit as the MVP. You're like, oh yeah, This guy's
Oh
good.
yeah, it's a Adren guy. Yeah.
Where did he come from?
What
And then the next nation, the next region to have a
region?
resurgence. I mean, I like Brazil. I do think there is loads of talent in Brazil. I'm a little bit annoyed we didn't get to see more of Pain because I think they're like a genuinely decent team. Um, if you sort of extend it to South America, you have other talents as well. Try on 9Z, very talented player. I quite like Max as well. Obviously Malbs, who's a favorite of the podcast. But you got players like Safe, Big Uzira. These are really good players. Big Uzira. There was a Brazilian guy who like told me to look out for him like a year ago or something, and I sort of kept an eye on him. And like that guy is super good. He's really
Mhm.
talented, Big Uzira. Really smart player, good clutch player, like just reliable fragger. Obviously, you got Safe, who came out of nowhere and is just like puts up Zyru numbers in tier 2. He's really interesting. So I think South America is the most obvious bet for that, but then it's quite difficult to rule out the US because
Yeah, I was that
North America.
like That's what I was kind of thinking about. Is like as much as we've like lost so many people to Valorant. Like I say, we like North America, right? As much as we've lost so many people to Valorant, we also still have teams like the Triumph and Bad News Bears who are still I'd say top 40 teams. I wouldn't put them top 30 yet, but they're still really good teams. And we've got Extra Salt, who is definitely a top 30, top 20 team, right? Like they've gone to Europe and they've actually shown that they can compete. And like there's always a team. There's always like the non-liquid, non-EG teams that's just like, yeah, we're around and we might not be the best team in the world, but you will definitely upset you when you least expect it. And like that's kind of what you expect. It's not you're never gonna. I don't think you'll see an American like three or four American teams in the top 10. I don't think that's a thing that you'll reasonably see.
Yep.
But will you see three or four American teams in the top 30? I think there's a decent chance of that. We can see three or four American teams up to an event, and you'll see one or two of them go out in groups, but a good chunk of them make to playoffs. I think you'll see that. I think you'll see these like kind of I think you'll see a lot of underdog stuff coming from America because as much as North American CS has like gotten absolutely hit down the last year, it's also to a weird point of like anyone who's left cares. Anyone
Absolutely.
who's left is like I'm in this for the haul. I'm in this. I'm not stopping. Like
Yep. I mean, I think even like America has the talent. It's just I don't know if there's enough in-game leaders in the region to like properly train them. And losing talent to Valorant will hurt. I think otherwise they would be a surefire bet to be the next team, the next region, because the players like Curry and Katie, who were the ones who I would like back to make the breakthrough, have gone to Valorant. Like Curry, losing Curry to Valorant is, I think, maybe the biggest loss to NA Counter Strike. I really think that. And I know Ethan, I know Nitro. Curry was the
I
next breed,
actually
man. He is seriously good.
I would have said Vanity.
I think there's an argument for Vanity and maybe Floppy now, but
I think Floppy and Zep are in their own weird tier, but I think
dude,
Vanity because
Curry
well
like absolutely smurfed on NA. That kid was so talented.
I agree, but on the other hand, like you're talking about lack of IGLs, right? And
Yeah,
Vanity
I
was
mean,
an
yeah, losing
IGL,
Vanity
and
definitely
regardless,
hurts.
and like, and he was a really good player even without being an IGL, right? Like because he had Steel with him for a while, so like I feel like he's a big loss as well. But like obviously, all these players are doing well in Valorant and enjoying Valorant. I
Oh
saw
yeah,
something
no,
like,
like I don't blame them for moving at all. I
oh
just think
yeah,
it from a Counter Strike perspective is sad, but like you
yeah,
can't begrudge that. Like I don't think many people, if they were being truthful, would turn down a pay rise and
yeah,
probably a quite substantial one, given they were like not contracted to anyone. Like I don't think anyone in their right mind could say they would turn down the chance to go to Valorant, to carry on playing video games for a living, to earn money and be more secure in the role. Anyone who says they turn that down is insane in my eyes.
yeah. All right. Next question: what can Fnatic do to return to being a top 15 team? This is
Oh man, Fnatic are frustrating, dude. Like, I just the obvious one is I think Nork is good enough to be up there. I think I'd just pick up
yep.
Nork, but I think other than that, you probably have to move away from Sweden. I don't know much about the rest of the Swedish scene, so like underneath Fnatic, NIP, etc. So maybe there's loads of talent that just isn't being unearthed. But it feels like every time somebody picks up an unknown Swedish player, it's kind of underwhelming. I mean, Rez is pretty good, but like he sort of came out of nowhere, and it's like, yeah, Rez is fine for a top 15 team, but he's not like game changer. I do like Nork, but I'd watched him before, and I wasn't surprised he was good.
Yeah.
Outside
I
of that,
mean,
like maybe you just build go for some Danish players who are out there or Norwegian players. Like maybe you make a Scandinavian super team, which seems to be all the rage at the moment. That seems to make more sense to me because again, unless they really trust their scouting, maybe Pepzor's so much better than I know because I don't know Pepzor at all. Maybe he's really good. Maybe Jaquinho is a lot better than I think. Possibly.
I don't know.
The thing with Fnatic is that because it's Fnatic, it seems like you can't. It feels like you
You
can't
never
just
can
get rid
lie.
of JW Crims gold. Like it feels like you can't get rid of JW and Crims, but then you've already got rid of Flusher and Olofmeister. So what's the big loss?
I don't know, but the other thing for me is like I don't. I might be totally wrong here, but like just based on watching for a little while, it feels like JW and Crims haven't been the problems. If that makes sense, like I feel
They
like
might
they've
be
been
if
two of the.
JW starts rifling again, which seems to be the case. I don't get that.
No, I
He's a
don't.
good rifler, but like
But
you're not
he's an
picking up JW
opper.
to rifle, are you?
But my point is like I don't think that they've ever been the problem. They've never been like the lowest rated player, something like that. They've played their roles. They've played their roles well. I feel like it's the cast that you put around them. Like JW's like JW's 26, and I think Crims is in the rough same area, right?
He's
They're
not actually that
still
old, no.
no. It's one of those things that it's like yeah, no, Crims is 27. Yeah, it's not like they're Forest age or something like that. They're like 31. You're like yeah, no, we should replace them and get some new blood in. No, they're in a good place in their careers right now that they are fragging and stuff, and they obviously are. And JW to me is synonymous with Fnatic, right? You've got Knife Fnatic with just everyone knives on this team. Like it's like you have JW to me is synonymous with Fnatic, and it'd be really weird to see him go, especially because he's not the worst player on the team. And like normally we
He's
can say
not,
that
but
like
at some point you kind of have to feel like, all right, we've changed the pieces around you now. Maybe it's worth shuffling something else and just bringing in a new generation. I mean, if you asked me straight up, it's 2021, who would you rather have Orping, Nork or JW? I love JW, but I can't in good faith
it's
say I
not.
wouldn't say I would say Nork. I have to like
I'd
that
say
has to be
knock
the
too,
choice.
but I can't tell you that if you said who would you rather have opping JW or knock, and I said knock, I couldn't say for a fact that I would replace JW on the team.
But I don't think you want JW rifling. That just seems
But do you want Jaquinho rifling
suboptimal to me.
instead?
Well, no, but I wouldn't have picked Jaquinho up either.
I
So
wouldn't have
I
picked
mean,
Jaquinho up either. But like, but my point is like, who's going to be your fifth player? Who's going to be this other Swedish player? Like, go grab twists from Lemon Dogs or whatever.
yeah, let's not do that again.
Like,
I,
they've
I
gone
never really
through.
got Twist. He's the strange player, like really streaky Orpa who couldn't
But my
like
point is they've
thought he could
gone
rifle
through.
but couldn't really, and I don't know.
They've gone through like every single possible Swedish player that's like decent, right? Like, and it's like, where did that lead you? It just led you absolutely nowhere. It's like the Thanos meeting. It's like, where did it lead you? Right back to me. It's just like
Yeah, that's why I
it
think they've
feels
got to
like
go. They've got to like gamble and go international a little bit. Like even if it's only to other Scandinavian countries, like maybe you just pick up some Finnish players. I don't know. Like
it
I
seems
think
like
teams
even
have
the
got to look a
Finnish
little
teams
bit
are.
wider. Like
Seems like the
one
Finnish teams
nation
are having an issue with
teams are
that.
always going to be a little bit limited in the player they can pick up. Like that has to be the case. Like maybe you sacrifice a certain level of skill for better communication. Fine, maybe that's the choice you make, but you also then have to consider changing that when things aren't going your way, which they aren't on Fnatic at the moment.
I mean, as far as I remember, like as far as I know, actually, all of the Swedish players speak fantastic English, and I don't see what there's a reason to not bring an international player. I mean, we're going to see it on Ninjas and Pajamas in a minute. All right, like devices being pulled in.
Yeah,
Obviously, he speaks Swedish, but like, it's still a person that's not inherently from Sweden that's getting put on the team, right? Like, it is an outsider. So
yep. And I think that's the way to go. The final question we got was from Zyrus, who asked why we haven't tried Oreos and salsa yet. It's actually really good. Thoughts?
I it can't be good. There's like just no chance that it can be good.
It's one of those things where it's two good things and you put them together and it like maybe the things are good enough that they carry it, but why would you have them together?
What the question I have is, what possessed you to test this? Not you, but like, what possessed Cyrus to test putting Oreos and salsa together?
I mean, it's probably the same sort of logic that got us like blue cheese, right? It's like, oh, cheese has gone moldy. Let's eat it anyway and see if it's any good. Like, hang on, isn't
Yeah,
that
but
bad?
like, why were your Oreos and your salsa anywhere near each other? Like,
I don't know. Maybe they were, you got the boys around. You're having some crisps, I guess chips for you, crisps and salsa,
yeah,
and then like you accidentally pick up an Oreo, dunk it in. You're like, ah, shit, I've ruined this Oreo. Might as well eat it anyway. And actually, this is pretty solid. Some of the best combinations don't make sense. Try telling people like maple syrup and bacon is good. They're gonna think you're an idiot.
fantastic.
Parma ham and melon. That's a thing, right?
I think so.
Pineapple and pork. Like these things don't make sense, but together they kind
Pineapple
of
and
work.
pork is fantastic,
I made some sweet and
but
sour
like,
pork the other day. It's pretty nice.
all right. Well, on that note, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for listening this week. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Aizyesque, at Logan Ramhap, and at ReadTBR. We'll be back again next week at our normal time. Hopefully, maybe. We'll be talking about the rest of Dreamhack and what we're going to look forward to in Flashpoint 3.
Peace.
See y'all.